They just decided that as the Washington State Republican Party, they would this year take a stand against democracy. And I do not mean this as a metaphor. I am not performing political analysis. I am literally describing what they literally did.
We do not want to be a democracy. Originally, congressmen were elected by a direct democracy. Senators were elected by their state legislatures, and presidents are elected by the Electoral College. We are devolving into a democracy because now congressmen and senators are elected by the same pool, a direct democracy. And with the national popular vote coming, we're going to be electing our president by a direct democracy too. Bad idea.
Bad idea. We are devolving into a democracy. We do not want to be a democracy. Okay. As Danny Westneat at the Seattle Times reported, delegates of the Washington State Republican Convention then stood up one by one to argue that the U.S. should repeal the 17th Amendment, which allows us to vote for our United States senators. After that resolution passed, they went bigger. They voted to put this language into their platform. Quote, "We encourage Republicans to substitute the words republic and republicanism where previously they have used the word democracy. Every time the word democracy is used favorably, it serves to promote the principles of the Democratic Party, the principles of which we ardently oppose." Quote, "We oppose legislation which makes our nation more democratic in nature." We oppose legislation which makes our nation more democratic in nature. So say Washington State Republicans, officially in writing in their party platform. What's going on here?
States are passing laws to make it harder for women to get access to things like education and grants and business grants, trying to drive women back into the kitchen, and then saying you also can't control your own reproduction. Women, wake up. When a war is being waged upon you, you are at war whether you want to be at or not. And the Republicans
Welcome to the National
openly
Newspaper
declared war
Publishers
on women.
Association.
Wake
Let
up.
it be known. And yeah, they have they've made that clear though. It's actually kind of refreshing to hear them say it out loud, right? That they don't want a democracy. That in fact, in their view, in quoting, we are, quote, devolving into a democracy. Um, but it is what it is. It's what they put out there. These MAGA folks said they don't want that. They want they want a dictatorship. And one of the things that talk about, she mentioned the popular vote and electoral college. There's so many on both sides. Mostly, though, I guess on the left side that would love to see the popular vote be the final say instead of the electoral vote. Yeah, I mean, obviously, for you know, civics 101, I guess, or government 101, history lessons, why we have the electoral college is because you got states like California and New York, bigger states that have bigger representation. So you have an electoral college instead of popular vote. But I would dare to say that there are many who would love to get rid of the electoral college system. Um, had they got rid of the electoral college system, a lot of things would have been different. Al Gore would have been president. Trump would not have won his first term. So there's a lot to that, a whole lot to that. Um, Mike V says Barrington and Austin were not wrong for seeking out a plan B in Africa after November. Wow. Well, I mean, this is the thing too. It's like, so when you are forewarned and forearmed with information, it's up to you to act on it. Power 96 says the Electoral College was created to satisfy Southern plantation owners. 100%. Absolutely. This idea of a plan B, everyone should have a plan B for a lot of stuff. And yes, we've certainly heard Barrington talk about it a lot. This idea of um, a flight out of here. And you hear more and more people talk about it now too. We heard it during the first Trump term, and we heard it a lot more now than we heard it then. That got to get out of here. Robert De Niro said the same thing. Like, okay, we got to get out of here if this guy takes over again. I mentioned Robert De Niro quite often. He's like the most mentioned white man on this show, isn't he? The Godfather. I mean, come on. He but he's one of the few, Steven Spielberg, um, as well, but he is one of the few and perhaps the most outspoken as to how dangerous the situation um, is Robert De Niro. And he is so much like his late peer, Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando was also a very, very outspoken individual on right and wrong, and certainly on racial issues. Marlon Brando was not uh, one of those who let me just keep quiet is not my fight type guy. He was very much in the mix when it comes to civil rights for African Americans and others, Native Americans for sure. He famously sent a Native American individual to pick up his Oscar award and tell him that, well, not necessarily to pick it up, but to tell him he wouldn't accept it. Mike B says, I'm not talking about De Niro, I'm talking about Cher. Now, I've only talked about Cher one time, Mike B. You know, I have a thing for Cher. When a Cher of 40 years ago. Cher said the other day, by the way, Mike, she said they were asking her about these young black guys she's been dating. And she said it's the young ones who who've shown the guts to approach her. She said she's not adverse to dating someone her age. It's only that the young ones have shown the courage to approach her. And she said they happen to have been cool dudes. So there you have it. So Mike, you run into Cher. I don't know your situation. If you're married, you got a woman, or whatever. But if you run into Cher, shoot your shot. Don't be scared. That's what Cher is saying. Cher said, "Don't be scared." See, you got me talking about Cher. Okay. So this morning, folks, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis says that the Georgia State investigation into her is unlawful, just as she is receiving the endorsement for another term from faith leaders in the state of Georgia. She she's really pushing back against the Georgia Republicans. We're going to talk about that this morning. Power 96 says that James Madison said that with a popular vote, the southern states could have no influence in the election on the score of Negroes. Mike Lee says he likes his women like his coffee black. I'm a black, no sugar, no additives in my coffee. They're straight black. Folks say, what you want in your coffee? Nothing, just black. And I will once in a while mix it with hot chocolate at times. So I'll be half coffee, half hot chocolate. So it's all black. Don't get me started, Mike. Don't get me started. A group of influential Republican senators have sent a letter to the International Criminal Court warning the chief prosecutor, Kareem Khan, not to issue international arrest warrants against Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other Israel officials, threatening the prosecutor with, quote, severe sanctions if he does. The White House is also um, saying that they are not going to and would not recognize the international court and prosecutor if they were to do or try to arrest Netanyahu or issue any type of sanctions against Israel. Very interesting stand, that public stand that they are taking. It seems like they're playing or at least trying to straddle two sides here. The White House, that is, this continued support of Israel. One of the things that they did do is, and we're going to talk about a ceasefire as well that is not being honored. A ceasefire agreement was reached yesterday between Israel, not Israel, Hamas and Egypt, which was negotiating that cease deal. But Israel says that there are other conditions. So we'll get into that. I gotta say that he's taking me out of my rhythm here, David. David Youngblood says coffee without cream and sugar is like a kiss without a hug. Listen, I don't need no hug with my kiss all the time, David. um, Al Sharpton is going to deliver the eulogy tomorrow for Frank Tyson, a 53-year-old black man who died in police custody after crying out, "I can't breathe." We'll talk about that this morning as well. And I'm a little bit upset with my favorite mode of transportation, Amtrak. A civil rights complaint was filed by a group of Reservoir Hill residents to the U.S. Department of Transportation that alleges that Amtrak's proposed Frederick Douglass Tunnel program will disproportionately impact Baltimore's Black and low-income community members. They're upset. They're naming it. It's named after Frederick Douglass, but this proposal that Amtrak is making, this tunnel program, is going to adversely, in a big way, affect Black and low income community members, which flies in the face of the fact that it's named after Frederick Douglass, which is a part of what the residents are screaming loudly about. We'll get into that this morning. But first, Fani Willis, she called a Georgia State Senate investigation into her that's ongoing right now. She's called it unlawful, and she said she would not testify before the Senate there in Georgia. Earlier this year, state Senate Republicans established a special committee to thoroughly investigate the allegations of misconduct that they launched from afar without any evidence against the district attorney. She's prosecuting, of course, Donald Trump and 18 others who are accused of trying to overturn the 2020 election loss in Georgia. She says she has not broken the law in any way. She says, and I quote, she says, "I don't even think they have the authority to subpoena me, but they need to learn the law." She says, "I will not appear to anything that is unlawful, and I have not broken the law in any way." The special committee was established after the district attorney found herself embroiled in this made up, contrived scandal that's related to a former relationship she had with special prosecutor Nathan Wade. It was argued that the relationship was improper and should disqualify her from continuing to lead the case. But she was allowed to remain on the condition that Wade was removed, and he did resign. And still, they are appealing the judge's decision to allow Fani Willis to remain on the case. How is it? Michelle Madison says she's taking Amtrak in a few hours. Get on the Acela, Michelle. Kick back. Let me give you some Amtrak etiquette. Kick back. Let them serve you some. They only have Dewar's and Jameson on there. So as far as Scotch and whiskey is concerned, now I'm not saying you're a Scotch or whiskey person. I'm just giving you some advice. Kick back with some Jameson or some Dewar's. They'll give you 2 at a time. Pace yourself. They had to give you the warm nuts. You order whatever. The beef If you're into beef, they got a nice beef thing. It's really good too. Kick back. Don't forget to tip the guy on the way out, though. But the committee in the Fani Willis case met for a hearing the other day. They are supposedly investigating the district attorney for potential conflicts of interest and misuse of public funds while threatening to enact new or to amend existing laws so that they can get rid of the district attorney. But how is it? This is a single, this, again, we know what it was all about, but just to underscore, a single woman, she's not married. She wasn't at the time dating anyone. She falls for this prosecutor, this special prosecutor. He falls for her. They date. They do what people do in this world who date, minding their business. How is it that that's a conflict? It wasn't like she was dating somebody from the Trump camp. Maybe that's what they're upset about. From Trump's attorneys. That would have been a conflict. But once again, this we saw it at the top. Our girl from MSNBC, both of them were from MSNBC. If you watch Joy Reid and oh gosh, why am I drawing a blank on homegirl's name? But nonetheless, both from MSNBC. Um, the rights that they what they expect, no democracy, and then as Joy says, Rachel Maddow, thanks, David. Joy said, um, they women they want to control your body. They want to control. They want you in the kitchen, and when it comes to a black woman, they want to put her business in the streets like that. It's her business. So what? She dated the guy. How is that influencing the the case against Trump and the others? How somebody explain that to me. It has no impact whatsoever. If anything, if anything, an argument could be made or could have been made that it hurts the prosecution because you know what happens in some relationships. Some relationships, and they were mature enough. That's the other thing here. Mature enough to say, you know what, it's not working out. Let's keep business business, personal stuff personal. We're not going to be seeing each other anymore romantically. We're going to work together. And they continue to work together without any problems, whatever. Generally, in a lot of settings, this is why police officers are not allowed to um, be involved with someone in the same precinct because anything could go wrong. Get upset, whatever. In this case, it could have been a situation where they were not mature adults. And then somebody's all upset and lacking on the job, and a very, very, very high profile case, crucial stuff, paperwork. They have to watch and dot every I and cross every T. It's like the O.J. Simpson trial. Marsha Clark and Chris Darden got into a relationship and he lost his mind. Put the glove on. Call Mark Furman. That's Chris Darden in his feelings, making all those mistakes. So if anything, it could have been something that the prosecution could have suffered for on their end, had no impact whatsoever on the defense. But this was about embarrassing her or trying to embarrass her. And the judge admonished her because when she was testifying, she stood up for herself and she did not stick to, in their view anyway, this courtroom, the demeanor, this you know upstanding. I gotta speak a certain way. No, she was Sister Fani Lewis, Fani Willis up there. She was black woman Fani Willis. She was I can go there too. She was one of those, y'all go low, I'm gonna go low with you to show you how ridiculous this is. And she showed him how ridiculous it was. And so as a compromise, the judge, knowing he had nothing against her, no reason to remove her, he really had no reason to remove Nathan Wade. But as a compromise, he removed Nathan Wade. But a group of faith leaders gathered yesterday to endorse Fani Willis. The state, the local and state race primaries are already in early voting, and election day is May 21st. Um, Willis faces a challenge in the Democratic primary in Christian Wise Smith, who is a former Atlanta solicitor and prosecutor in the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. And the winner of that race will face election law attorney and 2020 Trump campaign operative Courtney Kramer in the November election. Kramer is running unopposed on the Republican ballot. At a news conference, uh, Big Bethel AME Church on Auburn Avenue, the group of faith, this is where they had the press conference. The faith leaders, um, they made their endorsement known. They included the Georgia AME Bishop Reginald Jackson, Reverend Timothy McDonald, Dr. John Foster, Cynthia Hale, Jamal Bryant, Barbara Williams Skinner, Gerald Durley, Shannon Jones, and Andre Osborne, among others in the faith-based community that was there for District Attorney Fani Willis to give her their endorsement. Mike V says it's amazing that they want to have a conversation about Fani Willis's relationship, but not about the former president asking the Secretary of State for 11,780 votes to steal the election. And that's what it's all about. It's about deflection. It's always let's put this at the forefront to hide this. That's if people can't see it like Mike V, then hey, they haven't been paying attention or they're just extremely ignorant. Um, because it's always about that. And now Trump has to decide if he wants to spend a couple of days on Rikers Island or does he want to continue to badmouth the judge? Does he want to continue to talk about the case publicly? Um, because the judge again, the judge pleaded with him yesterday. I don't want, the judge said exactly this. He said, you are a former president. You could be president in a few months. I would hate to throw you in jail, but you are leaving me no choice. And again, as I said the other day, first of all, I don't think it's going to be Rikers Island, but even if it is, even if it is, they are already preparing a nice suite for him and a handful of Secret Service agents and others. So they will clear the yard. They will clear the other. You can best believe they will clean whatever jail as immaculate as it's ever been. Lock down the other inmates for 24 hours. Put up curtains and everything else. I mean, he'll just he will be in the company of others. And it will not be what thank you, what anybody else would get. And so again, once again, this idea that this man is being uh black people can relate is a stupid statement. It's important because of this. That's ridiculous. Mike says maybe putting the Tangerine Tyrant in Bellevue would be on. Is Bellevue still? I think Bellevue is still open, right? It's just not for. It's not like a mental hospital anymore. For mental health. It used to be. That's the thing. Creedmoor and Bellevue in New York is like you go to either one of those two if you like ready to be committed. David says it should be exactly what everyone else gets. No man above the law, and it won't be though. We know that. So turning our attention. So Ishmael Hanaya, who is the head of the political bureau of the Hamas movement, said in a statement that the group called the prime minister of Qatar and Egyptian minister of intelligence and informed them that Hamas had approved of their proposal regarding the ceasefire agreement. That news came hours after Israel dropped thousands of leaflets over Rafah, telling residents to evacuate ahead of what would be a ground invasion. Moments after the news, thousands of local residents took to the streets to celebrate. However, Israel's officials were later quoted as saying that this is not the same proposal for a deal that Israel and Egypt agreed upon 10 days earlier, and that it served as the basis for the indirect negotiations since then, and all kinds of clauses have been inserted. So Israel has backed off this ceasefire agreement, and overnight, they began the invasion. It's it's increasingly clear, if it's not already clear, that talks. Um, President Biden was on the phone with Netanyahu the other day. Any talks to stop Israel, to get Israel to agree to a ceasefire, um, is fruitless because they are determined, apparently determined, that they are going to have the complete destruction of Palestine. Because at this point, and this is the students that are protesting, at this point, it appears that it's not just, no longer just about Hamas. Maybe it was never about Hamas. That's what a lot of people are saying. And so, despite the efforts, and the president has made efforts, others have made efforts. We see Egypt, um, Qatar, they have made efforts, but Benjamin Netanyahu seems bent on a this is it, that there's no turning back, that Israel is going to accomplish, at least in Netanyahu's mind, what they really want to accomplish here. It is not just the eradication of the terrorists that is Hamas, but it's the complete annihilation and takeover of anything remnant of a Palestinian state. And so that's what so many are saying. That's what these students are saying. And people are concerned because you're talking about a whole lot of innocent lives here. A whole lot. And again, what Hamas did on October 7th was absolutely horrendous. It was something that they needed to. If you can get rid of them, you get rid of them. Jail or whatever the consequences are for what they did October 7th. But it was not from all sides. And I think Israel agrees as well. It was not Palestine. It was not Palestine. But here we are. Here we are all these months later. And all these talks. And the Biden administration did withhold some uh, weapons the other day from Israel. So um, that hasn't stopped or slowed down Netanyahu and his mission. And here we are. Meanwhile, a group of Republican senators sent a letter to the International Criminal Court Chief Prosecutor Kareem Khan warning him not to issue international arrest warrants against Netanyahu and other officials from Israel, threatening the prime minister with severe sanctions if he does so. It was a one-page letter signed by 12 Republican senators, including Tom Cotton, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and Mitch McConnell. And whereas Khan is informed that any attempt by the ICC to hold Netanyahu and his colleagues to account for their actions in Ghana will be interpreted, quote, not only as a threat to Israel's sovereignty, but to the sovereignty of the United States. Their letter, the gangster type letter, said this: target Israel and we will target you. Sanction your employees and associates and bar you and your families from the United States. This is the threat made against the ICC prosecutor. The letter concludes, again, we talk about in a Godfather like way, it concludes, you have been warned. Interesting stuff, folks. Interesting stuff. In the wake of the attacks on October 7th, Khan announced that the court had jurisdiction over any potential war crimes committed both by Hamas's militants in Israel and by Israel forces in Gaza. Per the Rome Statute of 2002, the ICC can charge individuals with war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. And recently, there have been many reports suggesting that Israel officials believe that the ICC is preparing arrest warrants for Netanyahu and other senior cabinet and military officials. The ICC is based in Hague, and the chief prosecutor published what many called an unprecedented statement on Twitter or X, calling for an end to the threats of retaliation against the ICC and attempts to impede and intimidate its officials. The statement added that such threats could constitute an offense against the administration of justice under the Rome Statute. Um, yeah, of course, Tim Scott signed the letter as well. They are calling the any warrant that the ICC might produce against Netanyahu illegitimate and lacking legal basis. They claim that it exposes the court's hypocrisy and double standards. They have pointed out that Khan has not issued arrest warrants for the leaders of Iran, Syria, China, or Hamas. But those countries that they list are not members of the ICC. And they were not accused of carrying out war crimes on the territory of an ICC member. So it's almost like saying, well, you stole something in Japan. I'm going to prosecute you in Canada for stealing something in Japan. It's like, last year, they did issue an arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin for his alleged responsibility for the war crime of unlawful deportation of population, meaning children. The Russian government responded by putting Khan on a wanted list. And at that time, President Biden called the arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin, quote, justified, and said it made a very good point. 2 years before that, Biden revoked U.S. sanctions that had been imposed by the Trump administration on the ICC prosecutor in the wake of an investigation into U.S. military action in Afghanistan. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said that the administration opposes any threats or intimidation to public officials, including ICC officials, but that the president does not support this investigation. So again, they're trying to walk a fine line there. Mike Fee, he's bringing the international racism part to this. He says the ICC only goes after black men, not white men. And Power 96, see, you can go on and on with this because Power 96 says the 12 GOP senators were quiet when the Nazis in the U.S. Marched and chanted Jews will not be replaced. Yeah, and and let's check out. We got this clip of Tim Scott. Terrible Tim. Just check it out.
You commit to accepting the election results of 2024. Bottom line.
At the end of the day, the 47th president of the United States will be President Donald Trump. And I'm excited to get back to low inflation, low unemployment.
Wait, Senator, yes or no? Yes or no? Will you accept the election results of 2024 no matter who wins?
That is my statement.
I'm totally unshocked by anything Tim Scott would do to kiss Trump's rather large orange posterior. This is a guy who just showed you he has no integrity, no honor, no honesty, no ability to lead or stand up for himself or anybody else. He so desperately wants to be Donald Trump's wingman that he's pre-lying about an election that hasn't even happened yet.
Senator, will you commit to?
He said, listen, he said pre-lying. That's a that's a good one. That's a new one. He said he's pre-lying. That is hilarious. He's pre-lying. But more importantly, it's a yes or no question. And it looks so bad. Not to turn make everything about white and black and white. But it looks particularly bad coming from a black man. And I gotta say, it just does. It just does. And to sit there, that simple answer should be yes. But the non-answer, it's a resounding no. I will not accept anything less than my master, my boss, the guy I shuck and jive for winning. And that's just that is exactly what that was. And I was so Kristen Welker there, who was pressing him. I was really appreciated the fact that you saw someone sitting in her seat, who was not just going to let that fly. Give me an answer. It's a yes or no question. And this walking minstrel show refused to say that. Because he's been given, just like the rest of them, their marching orders that if things don't go their way in November, there's going to be an all-out. What we saw January 6th is just it's a test run to what's to come this November. It's a test run. It will show you that was just what that was, a test run. But this guy, I know we've talked about it on other shows, and I still believe that more conversation needs to be had on with psychologists, with psychiatrists, on black men like Tim Scott, black people like Tim Scott, like Ice Cube, like Clarence Thomas, like Candace Owens. Candace Owens, not necessarily. Candace Owens can't for Candace Owens, it is a 100% complete grift. He doesn't believe what she's saying. What she knows is that it keeps the cash app flowing. It keeps the cash register ringing, the bank account flowing. That's what Candace Owens knows. But for these other guys in blackface, we need to really dig, and it's mental health month, mental health awareness month. Tim Scott, I suggest, is mentally ill. Terrence Thomas, I suggest, is mentally ill. Ice Cube, I suggest, is mentally ill. Stephen A. Smith is mentally ill, I suggest. We need to dig into this self-hating, this propping up the masters this far removed from slavery. And maybe we could turn that around, because if things go a certain way in November, maybe we're this close to slavery again instead of this far away. But we need to really tackle that and get some real concrete answers on why you have folks in these positions, Byron Donalds. And I'm gonna say this name, but I'm not necessarily lumping her into this. But again, y'all heard me with her policies on why a Muriel Bowser. I saw a Patrice Sultan write an op-ed about Muriel Bowser's latest policies. Why someone who looked like her, who comes from where she comes from, why this assault on your own people, your own children? These are your children. We're a community. But I'm not lumping Mayor Bowser in with all of that. I just think that she is under so much pressure. Now, I'm certainly not making an excuse for her, but I think she's under so much pressure, and she desperately wants to appease a certain base that she's doing the unthinkable. But these others that have made a career out of being, house Negroes, we got to dig into it. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. We got to dig into it. Al Sharpton is going to deliver the eulogy for Frank Tyson, the 53-year-old black man who died in police custody last month after a traffic incident in Canton, Ohio. His family requested Sharpton to deliver the eulogy. And Sharpton's going to be joined by, of course, attorney Ben Crump, who is representing Tyson's family, and will deliver a national call to justice at the service. Sharpton says Frank Tyson's cries of "I can't breathe" are ones we have heard far too often when black men and women die in police custody. Once again, we have seen footage of those pleas for help not only ignored but dismissed by officers using excessive force, who then left him to lie unconscious for several minutes. I have answered the family's call to deliver Frank's eulogy and remain committed to delivering justice for them. 36 minutes of body camera footage released by Canton officials showed officers arriving where Tyson was after crashing his car on April 18th. They restrained him as they tried to arrest him. One officer putting his knee on Tyson's upper torso. Ben Crump said it was on his neck. And it was at that point that Tyson repeatedly called out, "I can't breathe," which we heard Eric Garner and George Floyd yell out before they expired. One of the officers even cursed him as he said that. And as Power 96 mentioned, Tyson had spent 24 years in prison. And this was only 13 days, 2 weeks after he was released. And if you saw the video in the beginning, near the beginning of the video, you could see Tyson saying, Listen, this is not happening. Y'all not doing this to me again." He says, "Y'all not going to kill me." That was his words. "Y'all are not going to kill me." And it seems to me that these officers, yes, they have a job to do. But under those circumstances, under the circumstances that we are in, and then this man, again, showing his fear, saying, "Not today. Y'all not going to kill me." He wasn't, and he was not fighting them. He was just expressing his fear of being killed by the police. And they proceeded to kill him. When you have a man or a woman on the floor handcuffed, what's the point? What do you need to put your knee in their neck for? Um, Reportedly, it was about 8 minutes before anyone administered CPR on Mr. Tyson. When they recognized that he was unresponsive, 8 minutes lapsed before anyone attempted any life-saving measures. And yet, we want to hear from a Stephen A. Smith, or we want to hear from a Tim Scott or Clarence Thomas. And yet, this is why you hear African Americans when they talk about the college campus protest. Even they did a Saturday Night Live skit, and Keenan Thompson like, "No, we're not doing that." But my point is these demonstrations and this you know pro Palestine, and I'm not saying he shouldn't be pro. That's what you are. You're pro Palestine. You're pro Israel. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be either. Or. But where's all this for centuries, centuries of just outright nastiness, outright inhumane treatment of Black folks? Where's the outrage? As somebody mentioned earlier, that march in Charlottesville, that situation there. Where's the outrage? And that outrage is not even there anymore for January 6th. But that's a different thing. But where's the outrage? That it seems like every day, and I'm sure it does happen every day. There's a knee in the neck every day of a Black person. There's no sustained outrage. I said it back then. And y'all have heard me say this before. And I'm sure I wasn't the only one. When the situation with George Floyd happened, I said it. It was a moment, not a movement. It was not going to last. And now you have, we gotta change the laws. We gotta do this. We gotta do that. Now we gotta streamline the police department, the police forces. Yeah, Trump called those folks in Charlottesville fine folks. We gotta. eh, Now the numbers show that there's they're putting more money into police. They want the part of Mayor Bowser's thing is to loosen the restrictions on chokeholds. What happened to 2020? It seems like a lifetime ago. It was a moment because you have people like Tim Scott, because you have people like Muriel Bowser, because you have people like Clarence Thomas and Stephen A. Smith. That's why it was just a moment. There's no sustained anything. Somebody tell me how in the world, with all that going on in 2020, May of 2020, it began. 4 years later here, but in May of 20, with all that going on, how in the world the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act did not advance? How is that possible? It shows you what a joke it is when it comes to the cause of the African American. It's the bottom line. It's a joke. Michelle Madison said the people you mentioned drank the MAGA Kool-Aid. Hashtag Jim Jones. But it does not. And Mike V says it was Republicans who banned Mayor Bowser from showing up on the floor of Congress last year. But but it does not. It does not explain that folks get out in the street for everything else. Folks will put themselves on the line for everything else. They will put some things on the line for a black cause, some things. But in stuff, these college kids putting their uh, tuitions, their student aids, their future, everything on the line for people they don't know, for folks in another country. Yeah, chew on that for a while. A civil rights complaint was filed by a group of Reservoir Hill residents in the U.S. Department of Transportation that alleges Amtrak's proposed Frederick Douglass tunnel program will disproportionately impact Baltimore's Black and low-income community members. Reservoir Hill Association President Keandra Pryor said that to name a tunnel in a project like this after someone who actually fought for freedoms, truth, and equality for all is really, really disappointing. The project supposedly will modernize and transform a 10-mile section of the Northeast Corridor, which serves Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. It's a 1.4-mile Baltimore and Potomac tunnel that connects Amtrak's Penn Station to the MARC train's West Baltimore Station, which is the oldest Amtrak-owned tunnel in operation along the Northeast Corridor at nearly 150 years old. The current tunnel runs through several neighborhoods, including Sandtown, Winchester, Upton, and Bolton Hill. Amtrak said that the tunnel is impacted by a variety of age-related issues, including excessive water infiltration, deteriorating structure, and a sinking floor. Tag, I'm glad I know all this now. Every time I go through Baltimore on the Amtrak, which I will be doing that today. Like Michelle, I got something to think about. But the plan includes the construction of 2 new high-capacity tunnel tubes for electrified passenger trains, new roadway and railroad bridges, new rail systems, track, and infrastructure, plus a ADA accessible West Baltimore MARC station. And they claim that it's going to deliver a faster, more reliable trip. But this Title VI complaint that was filed on behalf of the Reservoir Hill Association takes issue. They said Amtrak very much had the option and the means to achieve the goals that they are trying to achieve in a way that wasn't so discriminatory. The complaint calls for the U.S. Department of Transportation to open an investigation, ultimately to stop all construction in connection to the tunnel program and discuss the future of the project with those who are adversely affected by it. Simply put, they don't want their voices to be ignored. They want to be heard. They want input. It's their community. And as they said, at the end of the day, the issue is that under the law, Amtrak is obligated to engage with the community in a way that you feel like your voices are heard and that all the decisions are very transparent and clear, that the measures of why they decided to put something in the neighborhood and then come up with a plan on how to make that beneficial to everyone. But none of those things have happened. The residents say that the plan would call for the construction of a 2-mile tunnel that would run directly underneath Reservoir Hill. It's a 36-page complaint. And they said that the result of this will be noise pollution, solid waste, and rodent problems. And then, of course, there will be the demolition of homes, businesses, and houses of worship, which they contend will cause harm to that historic neighborhood. So it's a lot going on there. They also noted other concerns that include the proposal for a ventilation facility that would be built across the street from the Dorothy Height Elementary School. You don't want a facility like that across the street from an elementary school. They say that that shows the level of disregard that Amtrak has come to our community with. And Mike V points out that Black folks have always been stakeholders in the Underground Railroad. So that is, I love that sign. Stop railroading us. But that is what they're facing. It's a lot going on, folks. A lot going on. We try to bring it to you every morning on Let It Be Known. That's why we call it Let It Be Known. But we try to just give it to you straight, unvarnished, as they say. Power 96 is watching us from on YouTube from the one channel, but we encourage you to go to the Let It Be Known's YouTube channel and subscribe there and watch from there. We're glad you're watching from anywhere, but we certainly would love to know that you're watching from the Let It Be Known YouTube page. And we will be back tomorrow with some more headlines for you to think about as you start your day. And hopefully everyone have a great day, and we'll see you then.